I'm going to upgrade the shaft in this one now. I'm going to get rid of the 4mm shaft and put a 316 in there. While I'm doing it, I'm just going to throw some of our trim tabs on. These are the smaller ones we sell. They are wider and longer than the stock ones. And then we'll put some adjustable fins on there too, but that's for later. As for the shaft, this is a kit that we sell for the 316 shaft. So you get a new stinger, and it's totally adjustable with a 316 bore. You need a bigger collet, cable, the stuffing tube. It's already bent and cut to length, and the Teflon liner. We'll have to trim that a little bit. So it's actually a really easy job, and Traxxas makes it even easier with their system here that they've got to hold everything in. It just comes straight out so easily. First thing you do, get rid of the servo rod. Just that there, and it just pulls away from there. These two bolts here hold the whole lot in. I've already loosened off the collet, and I've used the two Traxxas 10mm spanners they give you with the boat. So it's already loose. Get that out. As I remember it, all I need to do is loosen these from memory. They've got some kind of hook arrangement on the bottom. You can take them right out, it wouldn't matter. But I think they kind of hook into something. Haven't pulled one of these apart for 6 or 7 years. Ah, yeah, that's it. So all I've done is loosen them. My shaft is still in, but it's just held in a grommet there, just the stuffing tube. Yeah, and there it is there. So it's just held in with those two screws, 2 bolts there. Alright, the bigger one obviously isn't going to fit in the same hole that came out of, which is a little bit bigger. You can see the little one, the old one can slide inside. So, does it clip into the back? Oh yeah, so that's alright. It kind of opens up a bit and lets it slip in. This isn't going to. I reckon I'm going to have to maybe try and drill that out just a little bit to get this in. Yeah, I'm going to have to take some of that away. Alright, also got to take this collet off. I'm going to be throwing that in the bin. So it's just one grub screw there to get the collet off, and then that's out. Actually can't get the collet out because it just won't go further, won't go past there. It doesn't help that I've my fault, didn't grease the cable one time. Like the second time I ran it, it's kind of got too hot here and melted this. So I guess if that hadn't happened, I could probably get the collet out, but I still want to run a drill through it, so I can't do that from the back anyway. I mean, I could try and drill it out and take some more meat out, but it looks like the better option to be when it's that far out, that far apart, is just space it out with some washers, and I'll just use some longer bolts. I might even put nuts on the inside here, so then I can do it as tight as I like without risking stripping one of these plastic threads out with the stainless steel bolt. Alright, so it's right up to the end there, so I'm just going to be trimming that, but I'll do that after it's sticking out the back of the boat. I don't need to worry about that now. So now we'll just get this on there and space it up. So these were the bolts that were holding it in. I'm just going to use some nice long ones, and rather than flat washers, I'll just use spring washers, as they're a little bit fatter and I'll use less of them. Okay, so I've put a couple of nuts on the bottom there as well. I could do it as tight as I wanted to now if I needed to. The old collet has one grub screw holding it. This one has two. It's also a bit longer. It's not the worst idea to put a bit of blue Loctite on these as well. Can't say I've ever done it. It's up to you. Okay, so the collet is longer. You can see it's sort of right near there when it's even done up. There's not much there, but that's not going to matter. Again, you could put some blue Loctite on these bolts if you wanted to. I've never had them. I've never had one back out in my life, and they have spring washers in there to hold them in anyway. So it's another thing that if you really want to do it for peace of mind, you can do it. Alright, so now this is obviously bigger than the old one. It's not going to fit through the same grommet as easy. So let's see what we're going to do there. I can't remember if we cut these to length so that they just stop at the front of the grommet or not. Until I'm doing this on the fly. It would probably seal just fine if that was just, if this was the only part sticking there and then the grommet, I mean the tube stopped right there. But pushing it in like that has slid it up to here. So I could just loosen it off and just take a couple of millimeter off there and not even try and get it in the grommet, or you know, you could drill out the grommet. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to shorten it just a tiny bit. Been a lot of years since I designed this kit, and I can't even remember if I think that was meant to stop inside the boat as I'm making it do now, but we didn't used to make these double grub screw collets back then, like 10-12 years ago, so the collet was shorter, and I guess back then I cut these to length to make it go up just a little bit. It really doesn't matter. So if you didn't want to cut it, you're just going to have to enlarge the grommet hole a tiny bit to make this do the sealing rather than this do the sealing. I've tried this stuffing tube in both ways. It doesn't matter, it seems straight either way. This is the original one, there's hardly any bend in there. We copy that. Right now, I initially had it with there's the bend there. You can't really see it, but that's where it bends. I had that at the top half, like I would do in a normal boat. And now, because I just pulled it out, I switched it around to the bottom half and it still fits perfect. So, I don't know, probably get away with a straight shaft. Alright, slide that back in there. I could have cut a bit more off. See, it's still pushed it back up, it's pushed it forward into there, so I'm just going to take that much off there again. Alright, she's in. You read online that some people don't fit the new stuffing tube in there, in these kits. They just run the standard stuffing tube and take the liner out to make the clearance for the metal cable. Now, if you want to do that. Makes a difference to me. I've actually never done it. I don't like the idea of just, you know, pumping huge amounts of grease in there and just making a massive mess every time. But yeah, it obviously works to do it the other way, but really to get that in there is, you know, I'm just doing this on the fly. We've got 10 minutes work. So they're nice and tight. Just tighten up that collet and then just go to the back. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that you don't actually need a new drive dog. I see people place orders for these kits and they buy a drive dog as well. The thing is, these cables are 4mm to here, then 5mm to here. This is a 5mm bearing in here, and then it steps down. If I take the prop off, you'll be able to see what I mean. Then it steps down to 316. Oh, it'd be better if I took the dog off. Where are we? You can just see there's a little step there. The difference between 5mm and 316 is only a 1/4 of a millimeter. So we got 4mm, 5mm for the bearing to run on in the stock one, and then where the prop and the drive dog runs in is actually 316. So that's why you can put any brand of prop on the standard shaft. Okay, that's the old strut off. Now you can see this is too long here, so you're just going to snip that down. It doesn't matter. You can snip it flush with that. You can go in a little bit. It doesn't matter. It just can't be, you know, bottoming out in here. So use whatever you want to cut that. Angle grinder or scissors will do. Now the bottom holes are going to line up with the original ones. Okay. So you'll be putting the original bolt holes back in there, and then you're going to be drilling out. After you've bolted those in, then you drill your top ones. Some people don't bother putting the top ones in. Is there anything in the way there? That rib there is kind of going to be close to it, but I think it will come just above it. These are slotted on purpose, so you do have adjustment with this to come up and down just a little bit. You've got a little bit to play with there. All right. The cable. This is soldered at the top. Sometimes that solder can be just a little bit too thick, a little bit too much on there, and you can have trouble getting it in there. Not this one though. Now, the other thing is, to grease one of these cables, it's actually better if you have it in there like that and put your grease on the back and then slide it in. So the first grease is easy. After this is bolted in, you don't have to take this off, but you can get this arm off with that bolt there and that one there, and then you can take this arm off, and then the whole cable will come out with the arm to grease it. You don't have to grease it by, you know, doing it this method if you don't want to. It's just better. You can just get more grease through the little hole there if you grease it from the back and then push the whole thing in. It all just bunches up here if you don't do it that way. Just get some down there where the bearing runs as well. Okay. So just a matter of bolting that back in. I've got a lot of angle on this, just got to change that. Whatever you do, don't put Loctite on these bolts, or when you pull them out, you're just going to pull the plastic thread out. Thread out the boat. Another thing I get asked a lot about is that a grease nipple? It's actually not. It's for oil, like thin, like this sewing machine oil. You just drop it in there. You can put a little bit of water tube on there, and it feeds in easy, drops in easier, a bit less messy. Plus you can treat it like a little bit of a reservoir. If you have it like this long, as the thing needs it, it'll just come down. It doesn't matter if water gets in there or not. I look a bit weird with the red gear and then the blue rudder, but I'm going to swap that out later. I want to do that later on purpose. Okay. So now it's just a matter of getting a long 4mm drill bit and drilling these out here. We give you nuts and bolts for the top. So I'll just do that now. Just make sure that this, because these are slotted, it can go, you know, not straight. Just make sure if that one's in the, if that's in the middle of the slot, this one has to be in the middle of the slot. Another thing people don't realize about these things is I make these 10mm longer than the standard ones. It actually just gives you a little bit more of an edge. Because I put a flat on the bottom of these, the original one has a round on the bottom. The flat makes it more like you're extending the bottom of the boat. It just makes it handle just a tiny bit better. So where did those holes end up in here? Here we go, just above there, perfect. So I'll have enough room to put the nuts on there. If I was to drill it right at the bottom of that, it would have been all sorts of trouble. It would have went right on that ridge there. Okay, so this is an M4 bolt, 4mm. So I'm putting an I've drilled a 4mm hole, so it's going to be super tight. It's basically making a thread in the plastic as it goes in. You know, it's that tight, which is good for water leaks, or stopping them. So it's going to be real tight there. Alright, I don't know that I'm going to have room for the washer. It's going to hit on that part there, I think. Let's have a look. Yeah, see, I can't actually use the washer on that one, so I'll just run it without. No big deal. If you ever strip out the bottom threads in any of these, you just have to use long bolts. So they're the bottom ones there, they're blind holes. You just have to use longer bolts with nuts on the inside. It's not the end of the world. Alright, so after you've greased your cable and put it in, don't slide it all the way up into the collet just yet. Just slide it in and just make sure it spins okay. Like, you know, it's nice and free. And then slide her in. Just remembering you're going to leave a gap here, just a couple of millimeter. The rule of thumb can be the thickness of the cable is what you should leave there, which is, you know, 3/16. But really, this isn't a very powerful boat. It's running a small prop. Just 2 to 3mm is all you need. 3/16 is nearly 5mm. So what have I got here? I've got the thickness of the Traxxas spanner in there. That's all you need. It's not going to shrink more than that. And then once that's in, tighten this up, which I'll need the spanners for, and make sure you don't have a crazy angle on here. I've already reduced the angle a little bit, but it's still up. When they put them from the factory, it could be anywhere, and that's the only reason you would ever break one of these cables, and that's by not having too much angle, whether it's up or down. So set it level with the hull. Just by that I mean, we've got a ruler here or something. Here we go. Where you can see the gap here at the start of it is less then at the end, just make the same gap all the way along. Don't make it so that the bottom of the tip here is the same height as the bottom of the hull. Not to start with. Just start with it dead level and then work from there. You probably will need to pull it down just a little bit, but just start with it level. All that's left to do now is just to swap out the trim tabs and turn fins. You can see these ones are quite a bit bigger. Use the same bolts that Traxxas use. It's a 2.5mm Allen key to get these in and out. So, just to show the difference in size, they're quite a bit wider and they're also longer. Now you go from that to the next size up, or the next one up that we do, which is these double ones. They're a touch longer again, and they're obviously a lot wider. They're separately adjustable. They don't use these turnbuckle things anymore. This is an old set. We use these this system here is just a quick adjusters, just held on with an Allen key. When you do put these on, it's always a good idea to at least make sure they're super tight, but back them out and just put some blue Loctite on there. There's a pin that goes across there that holds all this together. Holes will line up and just bolt it straight on with the same bolts. Generally put the shaved edge on the outside, so it can be down like the stock one is, or it can be up like that. Anywhere in between, it can be right up if you want, and you can play around with how that's going to change the handling of your boat. Obviously the more you have it up, the less resistance it's going to give, and that will actually change how the boat handles in the water. But it's actually for going around corners, more this side because you turn right, and the idea is to dig in and hold the back of the boat in the water as it goes around a corner. If it turns really well, you might back it off a little bit, so it gives you less drag. So that's your difference. A little bit longer, much sharper. So that's done. I've just set these back a little bit rather than going straight down. You know, play around with them later. You might wonder why I didn't just go ahead and put the big ones on, the big trim tabs. You just got to remember, anything you do to make the boat more stable is most likely going to take speed away, or it's going to create a little bit more drag. For a stock prop, stock motor, stock everything else, these tabs will fix, you know, all your problems. When you start putting more power through it and getting up over 60 mile an hour, then you don't have a choice. You've got to put the bigger tabs on. But you know, just for a stock boat like this, I'll just do this first. I will upgrade all that later, or I will change that later when I change out the motor. I'm just going to leave the single rudder on there just for now. I wouldn't mind doing a comparison. Our rudders have 4 pickups with 2 outlets. I'd like to just try a temperature run with just connecting up half of it, just one hose with the 2 outlets, and compare what that difference that makes between a 1 outlet rudder. And I'll just hook it up through go the same way, but do that later on. Right, so that's everything on, tightened up and adjusted. I've got everything level at the back just to start with. Trim tabs are the same level here as they are at the back of the hull, like they're mounted a little bit above the hull. I haven't angled them down. With the shorter ones, I found the best way was to have it bent down a little bit so the tip of this was the same height as the hull, and that probably is what I'm going to need to do with these. But just initially, just start with everything level, and the same with the stinger.